All right, so today we are jumping headfirst into a wild and honestly massive trend that's been kind of blowing up on TikTok. It's called reality shifting. And trust me, it's a fascinating rabbit hole of parallel universes, intense fandom, and, well, some ideas that get a little concerning.
And that quote right there, it absolutely nails the central question we're tackling today. Is this just a new, super imaginative game for fans? You know, kids being kids? Or are we looking at something a lot more manipulative and maybe even harmful? Let's get into it.
So first things first, we need to be clear. This isn't some tiny fringe group. We are talking about a huge online subculture with tons of followers on apps like TikTok and Amino, and they've got their own language, their own culture, and this whole belief system built around one single core idea.
So the whole foundation of reality shifting comes from a real concept in theoretical physics, the multiverse. You know the idea. Every single decision you make, no matter how small, could create a branching timeline, a whole new parallel universe. So yeah, somewhere out there's a universe where you had pizza for breakfast. But the shifters, they take that idea and run with it way, way further.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, how do they claim this works? Well, the community has a whole specific process and its own lingo for what they believe is literally transferring their consciousness from our reality to a different one. Let's break down the key terms you need to know.
First up is CR. That stands for current reality. Pretty straightforward, right? It's this world, the one we're all in at this very moment, the one where you're watching this.
And then you have DR, which stands for desired reality. And this is where things get really interesting. Your DR can be any reality you can possibly imagine. But the number one most popular destination by a long shot, the world of Harry Potter. For some reason, Hogwarts is the place to be.
Now, before you even try to shift, you have to create a script. This is basically like writing fan fiction, but you're the main character. You write down every single detail about your life in your desired reality. You can script that you're best friends with Hermione, that you're the star of the Quidditch team, even that you're dating Draco Malfoy. Literally anything you want. Okay, so once you've got the basics down, you probably start having some questions, some pretty big logical questions, because this is where the whole belief system really starts to show some major cracks.
And this is a huge one. Let's say you do it. You shift your consciousness to your Hogwarts self. What happened to the person who was already living that life? Did you just take over their body? It's a tricky question, but the community, of course, has an answer.
Their explanation? Oh, you just leave a clone of yourself behind here in your current reality to go to school and do your chores. This whole clone idea, needless to say, has absolutely no basis in science. It's just a really convenient patch to fix a giant hole in their logic.
This question just perfectly highlights how absurd this can get. I mean, think about it. If you can go there, it has to be a two-way street, right? What's stopping a character like Voldemort from finding out about TikTok and deciding our reality looks like a pretty good place to conquer? According to the shifter's own rules, absolutely nothing.
And here's the real kicker. The whole idea of parallel universes implies that they run, well, parallel to ours. They should operate under the same fundamental laws of physics. So how could you possibly shift to a universe where magic is real? The internal logic just completely falls apart when you poke at it.
So if people aren't actually zapping their consciousness across the multiverse, what is happening? What are they experiencing? Well, it turns out there's a much simpler and, scientifically understood explanation for all of this.
Let's just put these side by side. The shifters claim they're transferring their consciousness. Science would call this having a lucid dream. That's when you're aware that you're dreaming and can even control what happens. Shifters use meditation to intensely focus on their desired reality right before they fall asleep. And what do we know for a fact? If you obsess over a topic before bed, you're way more likely to dream about it. It sounds exactly like they're just inducing very vivid lucid dreams.
And this is just a textbook example of pseudoscience. It works by taking a real, complicated scientific idea that sounds cool, in this case the multiverse, and then it just bolts on a bunch of totally made-up, unsupported rules about clones and scripts and consciousness and presents the whole thing as if it's a fact. Now you might be sitting there thinking, okay, so it's just lucid dreaming. What's the big deal? What's the harm? And you're right, the dreaming itself isn't the problem. The danger is in the belief system they've built around it and the way it's sold to really young, impressionable people. This is where things get genuinely concerning because the community uses some pretty classic manipulative tactics.
It creates an echo chamber where your only research is watching more TikToks from other believers. It encourages this really unhealthy level of obsession. But the worst part? It blames you if it doesn't work. If you fail to shift, it's always your fault for not believing hard enough. And when you mix all those tactics together, you end up with a system that can seriously warp a person's view of reality. It encourages a deep distrust of actual science and tells people to get their facts from this isolated, unverified online community, which sounds a lot like how groups like flat earthers or anti-vaxxers operate.
So what's the big takeaway here? Look, the desire to escape is powerful. We all feel it, especially when our reality feels difficult or out of our control. But the real message here is about embracing the one and only reality we actually have. Because like it or not, this is it. This is the one reality we know we have for sure. And yeah, a lot of things are out of our hands. But the irony is, the whole idea of branching universes is based on one powerful truth. Your choices matter. Your decisions create your path.
And this really is the core idea. Instead of pouring all of that time and energy into trying to escape to a fantasy world, imagine if you use that same energy to make choices, big ones, small ones, that could shape this reality into something closer to the one you actually desire.
It's a pretty powerful thought, isn't it? Escapism feels good for a little while, but it's agency, the power to make real choices in the real world that actually creates change. So maybe the important question isn't which reality you want to visit, but what kind of reality you want to build right here. What choice will you make?